Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we're looking at Hardware Issue 1. This is from Milestone and DC, and we open on a scene about a parakeet. Guy owned a parakeet that would escape his cage and constantly smack its head against the window trying to get outside. It never made it. Spoiler warning. Well, then we cut to Curtis Metcalf wearing his armor. He's known as Hardware, and he's blasting through a window, telling us a story about a place being guarded, and he's confronted by some helicopters in a really poor non-military formation, and he promptly kills everybody in one of the planes with a weapon that's mounted to him, and then he tricks one into shooting another one, and then he throws the pilot from a third one, plummeting to his death, stories and stories away, above the ground. Then he takes his armor off and reveals himself to be a scientist working in a laboratory. He's fighting against his evil corporate overlord white man. And I say that because he used the phrase, "that's mighty white of you," which has strong racial connotations against white people. Well, this man, Edwin Alva obviously being a play on Edison. So Edwin Alva apparently recruited him when he was very young. He won a science fair. Alva put him through a special prep school called the Better Chance program, where he graduated at 14 and then went on to earn a first college degree at 15, and then 6 more degrees, all paid for by Alva, on the condition that he come work for him. So he invented a whole bunch of stuff for Alva, along with this team of scientists that turn out high-tech equipment. But after a few years of this, he went in to see if he could get a cut of the profits. Now, he considered Alva to be more of a father than his own father, because his father was apparently never around that much. But Alva refused to give him any money and said he was just an employee and, quote, a cog in the machine. My machine. So he basically told Curtis to go away. You know, obviously Curtis was upset by this because he was completely dismissed by this guy. So he went to his lawyer, but his lawyer said that he can't get out of his contract and he can't work for a competitor ever. And I don't think that's a legally binding contract in the United States. That seems a bit heavy-handed. Curtis decided to investigate a little further and see what he could dig up, and turns out Alva pays his taxes, but he's corrupt in every other possible way. Drugs, bribing officials, gun running, weapons manufacture. Curtis was hoping to use that as leverage to get out of his contract, but nobody reported on it because this evil white guy was just too big. So that's when he came up with the idea of becoming Hardware. So he waits till nightfall on Saturdays, apparently Saturdays, and goes down to a forgotten sub-basement that used to be a bomb shelter, where he uses a bunch of equipment that he appropriated from Alva. And actually the equipment looks pretty cool. He puts on this, it's called Hardware Shell Forged. It's like an exo skin, so I guess he can't be recognized with it, but it looks really cool. And then he puts on the armor. So he's got a helmet and voice synthesizer. I don't like the helmet. I think that red thing around the edge looks really dippy. But otherwise, the armor looks kind of neat. Then he's got an onboard computer called Obi, an Omni Cannon gauntlet, got all these other things, another gauntlet, got a weapons pack, he's got an inertia widener, and then he's got this vehicle called a Skylark, which is like a jet-looking thing, all hidden in this basement. So then we cut to a scene where he's going to a warehouse to destroy some weapons in what's supposed to be a paper storage building. He is confronted by the guards, and he slaughters them. He ruthlessly cuts off one guy's arm, and that's when he's confronted by a supervillain of a sort, whose name is Reprise. And he's one of those guys that can split into multiple people, like Multiple Man, and that's where the issue ends. Now, if I sound a little disinterested, it's because, quite honestly, this is very much an Iron Man type character, and I didn't see anything to separate him from Steel or from Iron Man. Actually, the character's a little unlikable. He just kind of murders people. But, you know, I'm fine with some vigilante violence, but it all seems very, I don't know, it's all been done before. There's the themes of fighting against, quote, the man, and of course it's an evil white dude. It's all been done before. It's been done to death. It was a tired storyline back in the 90s when this came out. Definite racial overtones here that are a little bit hard to avoid. All the villains are white, and of course he's just the oppressed poor black guy who's a multimillionaire probably. Yeah, I don't know. It's it was hard for me to get into it. It's really well written. Dwayne McDuffie's a good writer. Dennis Cohen's art is really good. I do like his art style overall. It's not necessarily my thing per se. I think the line work's a little rough, but I can respect that it is good. Jimmy Palminotti's the inker. He did a good job. Noel Giddings, color artist, did a fine job. Janice Chang, letterer. Letters were fine. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good first issue, but it's for me it was a little mediocre, and it's got to pick up a little bit because it's a little predictable. He's just an extremely violent version of Steel and Iron Man. I think we're going to see a lot of anti-white sentiment of the character in here because there seems to be a lot of racial undertones about the poor black genius that makes millions of dollars working for some evil, corrupt white guy. It's a little tired. So maybe it was better in the 90s. But it's an okay story. I didn't hate it or anything. It's pretty well put together. It's a tired storyline. I'm a little tired of picking up comics that are supposedly new characters that are just rehashes of old characters that we've already had around and that now just hate white people. So I think that this was probably a lot better in the 90s when that sort of theme wasn't as prevalent as it is. But that's just my opinion. Overall, it was really well done. It's just it just looks mediocre by standards of being overused. So it might be worth tracking down if you're looking for some semi-original African American heroes. Otherwise, it's worth picking up out of the 50-cent bin. But beyond that, I don't see it having a long-term success. This was one of the more successful titles in the Milestone line. It was the longest running series, so maybe it'll pick up later. Hopefully they get away from some of the hating on Whitey and get to some good storytelling instead. But we'll find out in the next issue, which I'll hopefully have out later today. Anyways, that'll do it for this one. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.